Hi, everybody. This is Todd Krieger. Today, my topic is why just talking about it isn't working. Try to talk it out with your intimate partner, it meaning some issues, some problems, some conflicts, often leads to more tension. Now, we're all told to communicate, and so we try to communicate, and sometimes it gets worse. Why is that? Well, a lot of times it's really because the real problem or underlying deeper feelings are not being addressed. That's very common. We haven't been taught how to get to the core. It takes some vulnerability to get to the core. So, when we try to attempt to talk about these emotional issues and when we're not able to really get to the core, we do it halfway. It's called secondary emotions. We live in secondary emotions. Secondary emotions are frustration, anger. Sometimes we get into opinions and they're more surfacey, and the reactions usually to much more vulnerable, softer feelings. So I'll get to that. What do I mean by the softer feelings? But the question might be, why do we fight more when we try to talk about our issues? I've had many couples say, so we try to talk more, it just unravels and it's like, it's discouraging. Why should I even bring anything up? So are we doing something wrong in our communication? And the answer is probably yes, we are, but it's not our fault. It's not something that we should blame ourselves for. We need to understand what really it is. And that's what I'm talking to you about. So, primary emotions would be emotions that are a little more deeper, a little more vulnerable, feelings such as sadness and hurt and disappointment, and definitely fear. These are raw feelings, shame, embarrassment. Well, I felt embarrassed when you said that about me versus I can't believe you said that in front of a lot of other people. Okay. Uh, you shouldn't have said that. Made me feel like you don't care about me. Okay. That would be a typical conversation that leads to more defensiveness, more protection on both parties. And they don't really get to the deeper issues, which in this little hypothetical example is I was really embarrassed. I felt embarrassed. So, I mean, a lot of times couples can talk and talk and talk, and they don't get anywhere. They're not making any progress. And the reason for that is that they're not really giving the other person an experience of, I get you. They're not accomplishing that. So many couples can talk a lot without making progress because they just have an impulse to be heard, but they're doing it in a way, number one, that might make it difficult to be heard because they're not coming from their more primary emotions, maybe more secondary like anger, frustration, judgment. Okay. And also the partner listening is oftentimes not in the mindset of dropping one's agenda and totally tuning into the person expressing their feelings. So there can be a lot of that talking. Point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint, point, counterpoint. I did this. No, you didn't. You did that. And people get in a whole deal of what they're really trying to do is get to the truth. But the problem with getting to the truth is we all have different perspectives. We all have different filters in our brain and mind, and we see things differently. So when we keep going after the truth, it just leads to frustration. Instead, we need to make another intent, and it's not to be right. It's not to get to the truth, but it is for the other person to feel understood and for me to express myself so that you can understand me. That's why sometimes couples will come to me and go, we talked for hours and it did no good. It didn't do any good, but it's not because communication doesn't work. It's because you're not working the communication. You're not doing what communication really is intended to do, which is to share information about me to you and you take it in. And then you get to share information about you to me and I take it in and I check it out because I may not get your communication very accurately because it might trigger something in me or I have my own ideas about it. So we all have to be humble and definitely second guess ourselves. I know a lot of times we say we shouldn't second guess ourselves, but I think when it comes to interpersonal communication, we second guess ourselves. Like maybe I don't get it right. Well, this is how I heard it. Is this what you meant? Because our intent is to deeply understand what's going on with the other person and to go after the deeper feeling, the primary emotion. Wow, you seem really annoyed with me. Talk to me about why you're annoyed. You could always start there. I'm not saying you got to go to the hurt or the sadness, but your intent is to be interested in the person who's angry or frustrated or annoyed. And oftentimes, when you create a safe place for that person to express their secondary emotion, it's easier for the primary emotion to come up. The only problem with secondary emotions is when we stay there because we're trying to be right. We're going after the truth, my truth, defending ourselves, all that kind of stuff that doesn't do any good. Sometimes people ask me the question, what's the difference between venting and sharing? It's a huge difference between venting and sharing. When I wrote my book back in 2008, The Long Hot Marriage, I had an editor and he was right about everything he told me and he corrected me and I had to rewrite so much, except for one thing. He said, what do you have against venting? My wife and I vent all the time and it works. I go, good that it works for you. But typically it doesn't work. Venting is just the intent of venting is to get rid of my bodily tension at your expense. And oftentimes it is at your expense. The graphic analogy I use is so if I'm nauseous and I throw up on you, I feel better. So sorry for the graphics on that one, but you know what I mean, I think. But when I'm sharing, my intent isn't to reduce my tension. My sharing is my intent is to flash, to expose something in me and let you know this is what's going on with me. It's to inform you. The intent is to inform, not to reduce my tension. When we truly share, we may still have tension because we're sharing it in a way that respects the other person's emotional well-being. I'm gonna have to hold on to my frustration, sadness, hurt, even anger in a way that when I share it, it's not diminishing you in any way. The expression I've said is just because I'm angry doesn't mean my wife has to suffer. So I'm going over a few things. Let me kind of summarize what I'm saying here. Again, question is why do we fight more when we try to talk about our issues? A lot of it is because we get stuck in the secondary emotions by, anger and frustration, and we don't go deeper to the more vulnerable emotions. And are we doing something wrong in our communication? Yes, and it's usually is in our intent of the communication. If our intent is something other than to inform our partner what's going on with me, then it's wrong. It's not effective. Instead, our intent might be to reduce our tension, defend ourselves, punish the other person, many other intents. And mostly it's to reduce my tension. That doesn't work. So can couples talk too much without making progress? I went over that. They definitely can. If you're getting caught in a loop, don't say communication doesn't work. Just know you're not doing the communication with a clean intent to inform and to share, or you're not listening clearly. You're not dropping your agenda and being interested in the other person. And I went over the difference between venting and resolving. Not resolving, venting and sharing. So one question is talking always the best way to resolve tension? The answer is sometimes. I think verbally it is very important to share, like I said, the way I'm talking. But nonverbal connection is very important too. The way I look at you, when I'm communicating, especially in a difficult interaction, do I soften my eyes and soften my muscles so that I come across in a non-threatening way? So if I want to resolve tension, I need to pay attention to my nonverbals. And touch is another way, you know. Obviously, if you're really angry at me and I'm really angry at you, maybe we're not going to just go right away and hold each other or hold each other's hand, even though you could ask, I know you're angry at me, but can we hold our hands, each other's hands, while we talk about it? And if you have the maturity and the presence of mind to say yes to that, and you both agree, that's amazing. Because now it's much more likely that when you do use your words, it's softer and it's about the intent of sharing as opposed to some other less clean intent. So touching is important in the right way, holding, nonverbal, softening our jaw, softening our eyes, and then communicating a way where we take turns and we get to our primary emotions and our intent is to inform nothing else. So hopefully that explains a little bit why just talking about it isn't working. It's got to be a particular kind of talking about it, and it's got to be done in a way that works for both people. And the intent has to always be about sharing. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's when talking really works. It really does. Because when your partner feels heard by you, they will relax, they will de escalate. Absolutely true. Now, I have a program I'm doing, and it's called From Escalation and Conflict to Connecting and Loving. I think that's the right title. If not, I'm very close. I think that's right, Phil. It's a wonderful 90-minute, at least, information packed program that is going to be a relationship changer. Listen to it, take in what I'm saying, and practice, and you'll see how these 90 minutes or so can change your relationship. Bickering and escalating to connecting and loving. I can't imagine too many things more important than that for our relationship. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk to you tonight. Thank you for listening. This is Todd Krieger, making the world safe for love.